Often when you're looking for new inspiration for flower arrangements, sometimes it pays to go back into the past. In this case, maybe even 60 years into the past. To the English arrangements in the 1940s and 1950s, classical traditional design, but really looking old-fashioned these days. Really only find them in churches and traditional weddings. So I'm going to take those designs and I'm going to use them in ultra-modern ways, but still using those wonderful shapes of the triangle, the diagonal, the crescent, the Hogarth curve. 7 arrangements, all destined for my business clients, that are going to be beautiful but still ultra-modern. These styles are all based on having a certain line. So let's have a look at what these lines are. The first line is a triangle, and that is where you put your plant material. The second one is a horizontal. The third one is a vertical. Pretty easy. The next one is a diagonal, and then we start to get a little bit more complicated with a crescent, a Hogarth curve, because Hogarth was a man in England who was in the art movement, and that was part of a structure that he liked with a line. And the 7th one, the missing one, is an asymmetrical design, where you have the line going vertical and then one way with just a tiny bit that way. So those are the 7 basic lines. And we start always by establishing that line. In the olden days there were other things that needed to happen, but this isn't, so we're just going to have the line. The first one we're going to do is a triangular shape. It's time to get started, so let's start with the bowls. For my business clients, I use all my vases because they never break anything, but if you don't think you can trust that, these are plastic O bowls. They come in smalls or larges, which is very important. Some of my reception desks only have a small footprint to put their designs. Other ones, like a car showroom, has massive, so they get the big one. They're called O bowls, they're made of plastic, and they have these little tines in here which helps hold on the floral foam. So as many as I can I'm going to make using these, because it's really not about the container, it's all about the line. The triangular one is going to be for a big showroom, so I select the big O bowl. The floral foam is made to fit straight down onto there. And because of the nature of the line, and we have to have pieces extending out, we don't cut the floral foam to the rim, we cut it so it's slightly above the rim, so we've got room to put things on either side. So mark it about there and cut it. Take off the corners. That means the water hasn't got in. I'm going to go and re-soak this, because that has to be dark, dark, so I know water's everywhere. This design has got to last 2 weeks, so this floral foam has to be full of water. You can use anything. Don't be put off by the fact that I've got this beautiful lichen stick. Anything at all that we call line material can go in here, and this is the beauty of knowing these styles and making them modern. As long as you know that the first one has to go as vertically as you can make it, you know then there's the rest of the tees going this way, so you grab 2 more pieces of your line material and you put them out this way. I'm measuring, I'm going about there, I'm thinking about where it's going on the reception desk, cut it, clear off a bit of that lichen, and that's why you do it above the rim. First side, I now need a piece on this side. Exactly the same distance from there to there, but on this side. Move it over so you can see it better. And we take off these two because they're disrupting the line. And that's what we mean when we call a triangular line. Anything now that we place in here is going to go between here and here in this triangle. I've got this very, very flat. There's no depth yet to this. So it's called let's reinforce the line by putting a second piece in the front. And that's the beginning of what would have been design in the 1940s and 50s. Now let's make it wonderful and modern. How do you make it modern? You make it modern with bold shapes, with groupings, adding some manipulated leaves, and just giving it much more interest. Everything I select though does have to last a week. So I'm going to start with aspidistra. There it is, variegated aspidistra, picked straight out of a beautiful garden, a beautiful local garden. There it is growing. Can you imagine a patch of that available to you? I'm very lucky to have this resource. How does she keep the snails off it? Snail bait, she tells me all the time. Mine don't look like this, but they might do if I use snail bait. We're going to now get more depth. Everything is very symmetrical, so if I'm going to put this beautiful aspidistra in there, I'm going to put it between the two and push it in lower than that top piece. Now if I can find another one that's just a wee bit taller, I'm going to put it further up at the back. This is giving the arrangement depth, but it's also extending this going up. It's still symmetrical, and now we can start filling in the sides. Smaller bits, here they are. This beautiful one, give them a wipe. You can shine aspidistra leaves, use vegetable oil or leaf shine. Now because that's the extent I wanted, it can't be any more than that, so I'm going to cut the aspidistra down and push it in from the back. These arrangements are traditionally only viewed from one side. They're made for sideboards rather than for coffee tables or table settings. They're made for an altar in a church or things like that. Some lovely everlasting flower. As that dries, it will look exactly like that, and it will last for a couple of years. So I'm going to go smaller again and put those at the front. And there's the triangle. Let's check which way I want it to go. That way's fine. And in that goes to complete the triangle, and exactly the same on the other side. Clear off the foliage and put it in. From now on, nothing goes outside that line, but when you look at it this way, you can see it's still very, very flat, and it shouldn't be flat. So we have to add some depth, and the depth comes by shooting some out the front. Because it's not a flat 2D triangle, it is a 3D triangle. And now you can see the depth starting to form. And what about the back? Well, the back really is where you added all of the extra bits and pieces to hide the floral foam. So in the back, I'm just going to put a piece here in the meantime, and there's our basic line. From this point on, fill it up. And now don't worry about plant material. Don't think, oh, I can't do this design because I haven't got these pieces of plant material. It's not important. What is important is the method, the technique of what you've just seen me do. You can be doing it with absolutely anything, bought flowers, plant material, anything from wherever you are in the world, as long as you stick to this sort of format. You've got the style, but of course you're individualising it and you're making it your own. And I have got these. It's a tulip. Once a tulip finishes, that's its seed head, and I think that's absolutely beautiful. As this arrangement is going to be in all these beautiful cool greens, that is going to add a lovely texture, and I'm going to group them. I'm going to cut these ends because the garden that these were picked from is about an hour away and they weren't in water. So that's where my group's going to go. Now have a look, you'll see I'm leaning it out, it's not flat. And I'm going to put 3 or 4 of them there, never outside that triangle. Now I've also got these beautiful Angelica seed heads. Glorious. Late spring they arrive in a garden, and I'm going to put those in a group on the other side. Contrast. Always contrast. And you can see how it's coming outward. Now we don't want these sticks to just disappear, so with any end pieces you've got, now's the time to include them into the main design. As long as they are within the triangle, you can start placing them in at the back in these interesting places. This is a very rotten old tree. Just happened, decided it wanted to die when I needed something interesting for line material. I'm going to put a piece of this in the back as well. Now this is to make the back just as interesting, but it also has a practical purpose. If you put all your plant material going forward, eventually your design is going to overbalance forward. So you've got to keep remembering to put the same weight in the back to stop it falling over. It also gives depth so that as you're looking through here, as an observer, you're looking past all these into something in the back, and it gives the arrangement far more depth. Believe it or not, these are calendulas. I am picking them because they're bright against the green. You could use gerbras, you could use chrysanthemums, you could use orchids, anything. I've got them because they're bright and a lovely, lovely spot of colour. These ones are doubles. I've soaked them. Calendulas are amazing. They last much longer than you think they're going to. And I'm going to place them between these seed heads. And the tallest one I could find through the middle. At this point I'm not going symmetrical. It's still a triangular design, but it's not symmetrical, and it makes it just so much more interesting. And it's starting to look lovely, but it's not starting to look old-fashioned. Trim up this little piece that wants to hang down. Then you assess it and you say what needs to happen next. Normally in modern work we have 5s, 3s and 2s. There's 4 there, so I am going to pop another one in. Now you may have noticed that I kept the bottom of the tulips. These are the tulips that I chopped the seed heads off. They are really good fillers. Tulip leaves last for ages. All I have to do is cut out that stem and I've got a lovely bunch of tulip leaves. And these are ideal for placing in the sides and the backs as fillers. Compare the two sides. With that in place there, it's filled in that gap, but the yellow of the calendulas is still sparking outwards. So we'll do it again on this side. So we're starting to fill up, and now some of them are going to go in the back. Now, just to finish off, I'm going to use some conifer, another contrast, and it's adding to this beautiful greenness. I've picked this one because the yellow is going to go with those calendulas, and it's just a wonderful thing to fill in. It's also going to be a bit of contrast to all these smooth leaves. So, cut yourself little pieces, trim it down a bit so it doesn't go all slimy in the floral foam, and pop it into the places where you can see the foam still exposed. And do this all the way around, and you're done. And there it is. Design going off to one of my corporate clients who's got lots of reception area and wants something very, very bright for the end of spring. Back to my wee drawing. The next one is a horizontal. A horizontal is ideal for a space where they've got lots of room horizontally, but not a lot going up and down. It might be underneath the reception area. Perfect also for mantelpieces and things like this at Christmas. So for a horizontal, I'm going to use a smaller bowl. This is great for weddings too, for the top table. Once again, because we're going to put plant material in here, we need to have it slightly higher and pop it in. Now I'm going to use exactly the same pieces of plant material just to show you how it doesn't really matter about what you're using as long as you keep the line. I'm going to cut it there. You find balance, find where it wants to go and pop it in. Now I'm going to cut off all these straggly bits because they haven't got an enormous counter, but still enough to make it horizontal. Horizontal in proportion can go out as far as you want it to do. It doesn't matter. As for the top, because it's horizontal, we're only going to put little sticks in the top, and I do mean a little. About to there, and cut off, and cut off, and cut off. Now that has established your width and your height. Nothing goes above this height. If you were doing this traditionally, that would be one single rose would be put there, and then we fill it in. Traditionally we would fill it in by having a rose, a rose, a rose going down, a rose coming in and out to the front. We're not being traditional, so we're going to use aspidistra again. Put it at the back of it, and I've selected a similar one to go on this side at the back. Try not to have them touching each other, slight little slant there. It just gives the arrangement more life if you're not touching them there. And now, how am I going to achieve the same thing with the height if I can't go there? Because then it would turn into a triangle again. We do it by making some curls. Pop it in. And now curl the aspidistra around and flick it out over to the same side. Pop in the pin and do it again with another one. So we're getting these beautiful lovely swirls. And I go, curl it round, trying to do it asymmetrically. That's better. And curl it. Your curls will curl differently from my curls. Pop a pin here, which you can't see, and another pin there. The tulip seed pods. Line material, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for something that will carry the line of the eye out to the edges. What are we going to do with the front of the back? Exactly the same as we did before. This time we're going to add the angelica. This isn't the angelica that you eat, by the way. This is floral angelica. They're a little different. Pushing it right in so we can really enjoy that loop there. And the same at the back. Horizontal designs are often used for table settings, so it's quite important, if it is, that you do the back and the front. There's definitely a back and a front, but it's much easier to have them matching in some way. So I'm also going to add some of these tulip seeds into the back, and when you're looking from it from the front, it is giving a lot more depth. Alright, so we're starting to get this really nice shape. Once again, use the tulip leaves. I'm putting them in the back, making sure they're still going horizontal. Now, have you noticed something about these designs compared to European designs? These traditional English designs are all what are called radial, which means they come from one spot and radiate out. Often European designs will be straight up and down or all sorts of different ways, but these ones are definitely all coming from the centre spot, and that's what gives them the uniqueness. So when you're adding these pieces, imagine they're all growing from that centre. There's the back so far. And they have got them coming out. Even the aspidistra is coming from the centre and being curled outwards. Ranunculus last surprisingly well in floral foam, particularly if you can get them when they're only half opened. These ones will last a week. These little ones here, this one perhaps not quite so long, and so I have made sure it's got a bud on it, so if it does collapse the bud will come out. That's better. Always assessing how they're looking, and then we go towards the middle, group, smaller, symmetrical. It's not going to be because it's back to that let's keep it modern, people. Adding a few more sticks into the top so that it coordinates it really, just makes it a reason for the sticks to be everywhere and just that one section. And then some more ranunculus in the middle, fairly low. But it's starting to look really, really interesting, so we put one at the back just to give it some depth. See how you're now looking from the front and you're still seeing that one at the back? Much better. And finish off just like we did before with a tiny, tiny little bit of conifer. You don't want it to be mucking up the line too much. It's just really deep down in the background. A little bit at the back, And we're done. Horizontal, modern design, based on English traditions. Perfect for a table, the middle of a rectangular table. The next one on our list is the vertical design. This is perfect if a business or a space you need to put in has got a tiny little area for you, but they want to have lots of impact because it takes up very little room on any surface but takes up airspace, which gives it that wow effect for a small area. A long, skinny container. Have a look inside and see what I've done. I've put old floral foam in there. It's an ideal resting place for old floral foam. And then onto that goes a supermarket bag. And onto this goes the wet foam. And you push the supermarket bag down all the way around, and then the magic happens because you have a skewer, and the skewer goes right down through the plastic bag and into the old foam. This means you don't need to put any tape around and then try and hide the tape, which is almost impossible to do. The other thing you need is some aspidistra or a large leaf. Remember, this is anything about only having certain things. And I have prepared these. I'll show you another one. Couldn't be simpler. Here's the leaf. Roll it over. Take out any garden detritus. Shine it if you want to. Poke it in. Now, if you want the shiny side showing, put the shiny side on top, poke it through, and you've got this lovely loop. Alright, and that can go up like this or down. It's a great way to fill up a space. The other wonderful technique is take 2 aspidistra, 1, 2, tip on tip, a little bit of florist's wire, make a stitch. You can use a bead for this, you could make it a feature, you could use even a stapler. Turn it over, twist it, and you have this wonderful twisting piece of plant material to add your first line. Remember, this line is straight up and down. So there it goes, creating the vertical line. I have another one here that I've already done. That can see what happens. You can umbrella it, you can do anything, or you can just have 2 of them. Put it beside it, push them into the foam. The height can be twice the height of the container plus a little bit more. It's up to you, but it could go really, really high, particularly with a container that's this big. Then with your lots of pieces of aspidistra, just push them in. Work out where the front is. Push them all the way around. Sideways, backwards, frontwards. And this aspidistra, because it is in the floral foam, it will last for an incredibly long time. This one is going to a client who likes the arrangements to last, believe it or not, a month. They get a lot of aspidistra ranges. Now I've got this lovely tall one left, so I'm going to add to the height by putting that one at the back, and we've got the beginning of our arrangement. Now that's really, really fast, and all it needs now is some contrast. And so the contrast I'm going to use is this type of conifer. It's quite a prickly one. It's got little yellow tips to it, but I like it because it's compact. So when I put it in, it's going to give me a modern bunch of contrast rather than having it everywhere. So just trim the bottom of it a wee bit. Take off any of these brown bits that look too ugly. And put it in as your contrast. And the next one, a little bit lower. And a piece for the back. This is going in an area where you don't see the back, but it's just a sort of a professional pride, please, that you put a little bit in the back there. A few of these last of these lovely seeds coming in the front, pushing them through the aspidistra. Peeling off all the leaves this time. We've got plenty of leaf happening there, we don't want to add any more. Now, who says, quite frankly, that you need flowers? That is an arrangement for a client that wants them to last a month in their reception area. Their reception area is not air conditioned in any way. Their name has the word gold in it, so we've got little touches of gold in there. If I wanted to, I can make some little flower tubes. Little flower tubes extend, it's a flower tube, stick, taped, to pop in here if I wanted to add any flowers to it. But for me, who needs flowers anyway? A vertical design, keep it bold, and you've got something modern. Now I've just spied some floral foam down here, so I'm going to put a couple more aspidistra loops in there and it'll be done. Okay, I'll put some flowers in it. The moment, it's the irises that are out. They are stunning, beautifully long stemmed, ideal for a vertical design. Irises have this flower, when that dies another one comes up from the bottom. So they actually have two flowers on them. This iris has already had its second flower, it came out of there, so it will only last a week. But I'll put it in. If I had a different client, I can now put these irises in, one at the top, another one further down, cut shorter, and then a third one right at the base, cut very short. And there we have a vertical design with flowers, in case you didn't like it, just with foliage. The yellow of the iris going with the yellow of the conifer, and everything straight up. Make sure you don't make these too wide or it will turn back into a triangle design, so keep these in really tight. This next one is called asymmetrical. That means that you bring it down onto one side only. It is wonderful for the customer it's going to, for me, because she only has the tiniest of spaces on her counter, but the design can go out past the edge of the counter to give a bigger presence. The key with an asymmetrical design is to make sure it's balanced, so you put a little bit of heavier plant material there. So here we start again. This time I'm selected a small O bowl and, yep, floral foam that's wet, and you know what we're going to do. We're going to establish our line. Now you're never going to believe what I found. If you have a good look on a tree, sometimes you're lucky enough to find a branch that does exactly what you want it to do. Who would have thought? When I spied this, I said, I know what that's going to be. That's going to be the asymmetrical design. Either way, see how this piece is not doing anything for it? It's got to go.
Got to.
Now, how do we attach it when we don't push it in? This is when you use a heavy piece of florist's wire. Round once, round twice, 3 times. Twist it. Cut it off with the tin snips. Will it go that way? Yes, that's the way it's going. And push it into the floral foam. Ta-da! It's staying there. Okay. Now I'm not content with that. So another piece of heavy gauged wire, we roll it over and we put it there. Alright, not going anywhere, it's done. If you're not sure, cut yourself another piece, bend it over and push it so it goes right down into the floral foam. Alright, and that gives you the line. I'm just checking you, got a wee bit of lean on it there. We want it to be straight up and down both ways. If you can't find a piece of stick like this, I mean really, it is incredible I found it, just push that one into here, the floral foam is above the rim, and push that one down straight in. It's probably simpler too. Now the proportions of this, normally that's 1/3, 2/3, just to get that asymmetrical. If you go out too much further, it becomes way too heavy out this way. I've got this stick as well. So I'm going to add to this one and pop it at the back here and push it right in. And just to stabilise that with that, I've got some much finer green florist wire here. I'll just pop that one around there. It will be hidden by the foliage. But it just means that it's not going to move. All of these designs have to go in our vehicle to be delivered. Tin snips, the answer to everything, except blinding you. Alright, so that's given us some accentuated line here. And I can bring these up and around. And then we put some little sticks also going this way. About there. And push that one in. So an asymmetrical design is half of the triangular one that we showed you. So we can fill in this bit, we can put something big and bulky here, but we don't go over the top of there or beyond there. I have got some interesting conifer here. Can you see how tizzy it is, how busy it is beside that? If I use that up the top here, it is going to destroy all that nice, beautiful lichen and shapes. So I'm going to cut it down much, much smaller into its twiglets, and it's going to go on this side. Shorter it's got a really, really awful smell. And slightly higher there, but not disturbing that piece there. And this is bringing balanced for this side. It's giving airy something there for when I push it out that way, there will be something happening. And then guess what? We've now got Tizzy. We don't want it looking too old-fashioned, so we're going to add the modern. And the modern is back to my aspidistra. This time we're going to use beautiful dark green. Look at that. Different technique this time. Cut it off, put it in way back here. Fold it to here. Way back there. Now split it in half. This is a very wide piece of aspidistra. You can split it and make it do two different things. Just going to make myself a couple more pins. Don't actually have to bend it down. Right back to here and flick it out. And then with this one, bend it down underneath and flick it out. It's heading off in that direction. Grab it, cut the end. I do think the same thing again in the back here. Bend it, make a lovely little loop. Don't want that one in the way yet. Take it out, pop that one in. Want them all facing this way. And there we can see we're getting this definite aspidistra swirl as it's going out. These strong leaves, what could you use? You could use cordyline, iris leaves, pandanus, anything that you've got that's a lovely broad leaf. So I'm going to put the last one in the back here, push it deep down and do exactly the same thing again. Down, around and loop and gone. The loops here are reinforcing that line, making it a little bit higher and just popping it in here. That is an asymmetrical design. There's the line swishing out, and then all we have to do is add some interesting things in the middle here to keep our receptionists happy. And what have we got? These amazing things here. We call them arithmetic plants. The reason we call them that is because we can't say the name. But there it is, at the bottom of the screen. That's what they're really called, and they grow in that clump. Absolutely beautiful plant, little flowers. They are growing in a climate that gets several frosts a year, so they're not tropical. If you can find something astonishing like this, aren't they incredible? And so it's quite an unusual arrangement. It's not often you find things like that in someone's garden that they say, would you like some of those, Trish? But probably needs a wee bit more colour. So I just have a couple of these beautiful spraxias. The spraxias, they start here. That's the first flower. You can see it's dyed. So you pull that one off, and these ones will all open over the course of the week, so it keeps it in. And it's just going to give it a wee splash of pink. And that one there will come out. So I'm just going to tuck those in the back into the floral foam to give a little bit of pinkness. Now that pinkness then brings out the colour in these, and I have one more here So that's the first flower out, so that's going to last. This is what's so good about all these members of the freesia families. They really are brilliant because they just keep opening up. So that's given height to the top. It's got these really interesting things in the bottom. Now don't despair if you can't find these. What else could you use? You could use gladioli. Once again, all of the standards, the carnations. Don't use gerbras. Gerbras are big round points. You want things that you can have, even daisies, little bunches of, because it's not what this lesson is all about. It's all about establish that line, that asymmetrical line, add a little bit over the side, and then the rest all goes out that way. This design is the diagonal, and because it's the diagonal, this part of it here is going to be below the vase, this one above the vase. Therefore, you have to select the vase that's tall. You cannot use those obols for this design. Any tall container will do for this one. Because these styles of designs are really structured, floral foam is the answer. Using just water in a vase without the floral foam would make it quite difficult to get the shape that you want. A wee trick for you, supermarket bag, see if you can find a grey one, because it doesn't show up as much as the white one. Pop it inside there. Push the floral foam down on it, and that will give you the oval shape you need to cut out the floral foam to fit. Obviously I have wet this. Now the foam has to go still above the rim. So when you push it in, don't push it in too far. We need to be able to get the sticks in top and bottom there. And then use the florist's knife. Use the back of the florist's knife just to push any of the, that's working, plastic bag in there, and it creates this really, really tight seal. I'm going to cut a little bit of it off because this might be a bit excessive. Now, back to that line, we have to have a diagonal line. So this time I'm going to use reeds. These are beautiful native New Zealand reeds. Now if you can imagine, I've also got to keep it within a distance that will take up a reception area without poking out the reception lady's eyes. So this is when the estimate to how far the diagonal is going to go, and it will be based on her eyes, the area of the reception area, and the proportions. Now I'm saying possibly about there. So I have a bundle of these reeds and I push them all at once together from the top. That's one that's potential for her eye, so push that one in a wee bit more. Now can you see how that's actually not a diagonal? They're not going through smoothly, so it has to look as if it travels through it. So adjust this one. Once again, any line material, don't have to go hunting for New Zealand's native reeds, the lichen covered sticks, spear grass, anything will do the job as long as it's giving you that definitive line, which means from now on everything you place is to go within that line. So when you're happy you've got that diagonal, you'll see you're always going to have a bare bit here of floral foam. That's just the nature of having that diagonal. And so I have got here some pelargonium leaves. Any leaf, give the contrast, that can go in here. They're still going on the diagonal, but they are not only hiding that foam there, they're also filling in that piece of foam there without wrecking that line too much. A bit like the little piece you put on the end when I showed you how to do the asymmetrical. Just adds to the balance. Right, now we have got some beautiful pieces of plant material that's going to continue the line. We have the status, so that now follows that line that way. And cut it a little bit shorter and follow the line down this way. Cut it a lot shorter. Pop some in there and some in there. Now at this point, this area is now going to become our focal area. This is where we're going to now put all of our plant material fairly low as we've established a line, and that is the middle piece of it. So with the rest of them, keeping it probably about that height, we can now start adding all the other beautiful pieces of plant material. What's good about this status, of course, is it dries to look exactly the same as it does now. Put some more of the geranium in, short pieces, because we're now working to make that floral foam disappear. And then I'm going to use lavender, and this is, being a late spring, you've got to pick the lavender that has got really hard stalks on it. Some of it's floppy. If it's floppy, don't pick it, it won't last. But lavender like this will last ages. And start with the line, pop the long ones in, going down, up, whatever you put at the top, you put down the bottom. If you group lavender, it always has more of an effect. Picking all these soft pinks, but because I've got this big white vase, I am going to have to put some white flowers in it. See, okay, now we have the ornithogalums, the most outstanding cut flower for late spring. As these ones die out, more will open. An ornithogalum will last 3 weeks at least as a cut flower. They are the most astonishing flower to grow or to buy, but when you buy them so they've only got a couple of flowers out here, so there's lots of room for those other ones to grow. And these go in. You probably could get one fairly long that way, and one fairly long the other way. And then the rest of them cut short and put in the middle. And so now we go for a few more of the fillers. You can see I've still got a bit of floral foam showing there. Seed heads from the ranunculus. I love seed heads. I think this beautiful fuzzy texture here is just lovely. So when you've got things like that, it's always rather nice just to pop them in. keeping it low. Got to have everything here as low as possible. And adds a wee bit of contrast. Never grown a tulip from a seed, so it'll be interesting to know if I can. So it's getting really full now, and I'm going to finish with these beautiful ranunculus. The red, red in this case is quite a recessive colour, but it will just add a little bit more colour going through the colour field of all these lovely purples and things. Popping a couple at the front here. Going forward. Another one on this side. So I'm looking through for one and I can see the back of the other one. I try to pick these when they're not fully out. So they can watch them come out. These will last surprisingly well. The last one I did lasted 10 days, which I found quite remarkable. For the next two designs, the lines are actually curves. This can be a problem if you don't have access to a tree or a rosemary hedge or something that's going to give you a curved line. So you may have to go out hunting to find the curves. It's much, much easier than trying to make the curves with plant material that you've bought. Rosemary hedge always gives me beautiful curves. So if I cut it off here, I immediately have the curve I need and a piece to put into the floral foam. There's two more pieces over here that are also beautiful curves. Find a tree, branches, sticks, anything like that at all, where you can get a natural curve and your life will be much, much easier. So that is the curved design I was talking about. It is called a crescent, and it can go right around this way, and if it's a reverse crescent it actually goes upside down. We're going to do the crescent shape, and I'm going to bring the sides up. Now the sides don't have to be equal. We could have one down here and one right the way around here, which you often see in Japanese design. For that we can use the old O bowl. Put it down into that piece of O bowl and cut the corners off because it stops the design tending to be quite so square. Now these are the two that I just picked from the rosemary bush, and you can see that beautiful curve. I've had to do nothing with this and we've got that lovely curve. Take them off the bottom and push it in. The second one, make sure the curve's going in the right direction. And I want that curve so it doesn't have to be as tall. This design, it doesn't have to be symmetrical, one can be taller than the other, and put it in. That's going to be annoying, so I'll put it in this way. Now, you can see how much area that takes up. That's air space now. That's why I used the small O bowl, because as it curves out, it does take up quite a lot of area. I want the curve to go inwards, so we're going to add a second one to curve it in. Now if you want to give it a wee bit of a push, put your elbows on the side of here and just gently do this. You can do this with any plant material. If you're very gentle, as soon as you hear it crack, you know you've gone too far, and it will bend it over just a little bit. So that's given it a much nicer curve. So when I put that one in, we've definitely got that bend. So this is going to be cut off there. We've now got them coming in to talk to each other. And the same with this one, I'm going to have this one slightly higher. It might annoy you if you like symmetry. There's our beautiful curve, and it all done so easily when you pick the right plant material. Now we're going to reinforce that line. They were given to me and you won't be able to find them, but remember, as you're looking through leaves and things, if you can find one that's got a natural bend on it like that, that's the sort of thing you're looking for. The base of it is very, very floppy, so I'm going to have to wire that so that it will go in. But if I hadn't put that wire in, it just wouldn't hold. And you see, it's reinforcing that line. I've got 3 or 4 of them, so I'm going to do it again and again and again. Any plant material that you've got like this, just think about, is it going to stay in there? And if it's not, it really is easy just to add that little piece of wire to help it out. With our trusty tin snips. There it is, groupings of 3, keeping it modern. Interspace between, keeping that curve going. It's interesting, when you start opening your eyes and you're looking for curved plant material, you will find it everywhere. This is part of an enormous flower, and just these pieces have been peeled off from the outside. Now the next thing we need to do with this is cover the base. I've got a different sort of pelargonium, this one. I've picked this one because it's got this beautiful circle here, which is a shade of the pinks that I'm using. And being round, of course, it's going to go with the roundness of the rest of the piece. If they touch, it doesn't look as good, but this way it does keep it modern. I'm doing 2 or 3 together in this with this layered look. There it is on the back or front. This design style you don't see very often, which makes it something really interesting. People won't have seen it, but it is perfect for a middle of a dining room table, wedding table, something like that, because it can be viewed from both sides. I'm now starting to hide that wiring by putting the plant material over the top of it. So we're getting some interest here, but it's still within that tight curve. So they also go in here. The pink selected, there's the status, and the pink selected because it's all the same tones and shades as what's there. And up onto this one as well. And that's as far as I'm going to go with reinforcing that line. The rest of the plant material is going to be across this way. Otherwise, you'll lose that lovely crescent. Notice how I'm pushing them from the base of the ranunculus, those soft little stems. Now the roses go in, freshly picked. I've planted 10 roses. This one's called Hamilton Gardens, and when I went to the rose grower, I asked for roses that smell, whoa, and roses that last a long time as a cut flower. That was the only conditions. I said I didn't mind the colour, but those, it had to happen. It had to be a lovely cut flower. Taking off the leaves, I will use the leaves further down, trying to keep it as low as I can. Now these will come out into more bloom. So we've got those roses for any woman who go in. I'm being a bit sexist there, aren't I? For anybody who wants to smell the arrangement, they're going to smell the rosemary, they're going to smell the roses. Alright, now you can see we've got a few gaps and these beautiful rose leaves. It's been raining outside, they've still got rainwater on them, but they're that beautiful dark colour which is a stunning contrast to the pelargoniums. So I'm going to use these rose leaves, twiglets, to fill up any gaps where I can still see the floral foam or the wiring. And there we have a traditional English crescent shape, modernised by the use of colour, by the mixture of plant material, and by grouping the flowers. That famous S-curve called a Hogarth. It is the most difficult one to do, but no flower arranging is difficult. It's about picking your plant material. The Hogarth curve. Very seldom do you see it, but it is pretty cool. Now I'm going to use a tall container because this is going in the lobby of bed and breakfast, and therefore it's a big lobby and it can have plenty of room. The container, just like I did last time, I have put a plastic bag inside. This is full of junk, dry, old floral foam, and then wet floral foam in there, above the rim so I can push things in sideways. I've been down to our lavender hedge and I've looked for lavender that's got the curve. Now this is what I'm talking about lavender that is spring growth. That will be dead in a day, even on floral foam, so that'll have to be cut off. This one here is lovely and strong. You can see and feel the difference, so that one will be left. So into the side, push it right in, and while I'm there, I'll cut off these floppy ones. Have to be very, very careful with spring growth if you're using garden material. If it comes from the growers, it's all done inside glass houses anyway, so it doesn't matter. And here is the second placement. Absolute opposite way and down. And there's the curve. And there's your defining line. Cut off these little bits and then reinforce the line with another piece further in, just to give it that clump. Now I've got that, I know where I'm going. I can have a lot more height though, because this is a very tall container. So I went out and found a flax. Now this is Cookium. Cookium flax, New Zealand flax, always grows with a flop on it. If it was the New Zealand native flax, it grows upright. If I wanted to use this upright, I could just do that and it would do it, but it would flop down fairly easily. That flop is perfect for a Hogarth. Okay, so that is the line. You've now got your Hogarth curve. We want to keep it modern. By keeping it modern, we need strong middle pieces, and that's why I'm going to use this amazing seed head from Angelica. Going to cut it quite short, push it into the front here, but straight down, just like the crescent. You don't want anything to upset that line. Zoom, boom. That's how we want it to be. I've also got some arum lily leaves. They've got beautiful curve on them. It's about keeping your eyes open for these things. Once you start looking, you'll find these curves everywhere, and putting them in the right way round. Curve, no, wrong. Curve, right, accentuating the line. With arum lilies, often you might have to put toothpicks in there to hold them into the foam. Okay, so those arum lily leaves are bringing the curve, going down with the curve, and all we've got left to do is put the flowers in the middle. Very, very modern. By how do you make it? You make it modern by having bold shapes. As I've said before, group, group, group. So the first things I have got are the arum lilies. Now the arum lilies have a curve of their own, visual curve, with this piece here. So if I'm going to place it, it's going to have to go this way, so it's going down that way, which means cutting it short and placing it through the Angelica and down into the floral foam, because they have their own direction. If I put it this way, it seems to be going wrong. If I put it that way, it's going wrong. So I have to keep them in this direction. I'm going to bury these. Once again, if I had them too high, the curve is gone because they're very, very straight. Irises don't grow with curves. So down into the seeds of the Angelica. Now all I have left to do is fill in any gaps. They're at the front or the back, so we can't see the floral foam. And to do that, I'm going to use a little bit more of that lovely Angelica seed here. Now, I want a change of contrast here. So we can always, because we've got these whites, I'm going for a conifer that is quite neutral, which is this one here. It will add texture, but it won't add any new colour. As you place it, and placing it so it's going down in the same direction. What's wonderful about these designs is if you remember that you're making a line and everything has to go with that line, it always works out. So there it is, a Hogarth in the modern style, using bold plant material and keeping that line alive. Have a go with what you find, and of course I'd love to see any examples of your work. Just email me at floradesignmagazine.com and really let's share the modern way of doing these old design styles.